And also, just be aware that note values were tied only to succeeding note of equal or shorter value. All right? So this is cool because it's equal. It's a half note to a half note tie, right? Here, it's cool. Half note to quarter note, so the quarter note's shorter. This would be strange, right? So it's a quarter note to a half note. That wouldn't be done, all right? And it's got to be the next shorter value. So this whole note to a quarter note, also weird. You'd see whole note to half note, that would be normal, but whole note to quarter note, very strange. All right, so I guess avoid those if you're planning on writing a late Renaissance motet. Also, we didn't really see quarter rests, and you would only see half rests on beats 1 and 3, like that, okay? And you're also only going to see eighth notes occur only on the second half of a beat, and always in pairs. So you're always going to see them in twos, okay? They're like girls going to the bathroom. You never see just one. They always go together. And you're always going to see them on the second half of a beat, okay? So these are obviously on the accented portion of the beat, the front part of the beat. You would more than likely see them, it would probably more than likely look like this, with a quarter note here. Ba, 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 rather than ba, ba, ba. All right? These are just some style principles. Furthermore, these are not that crazy important. So, but you do need to know what a hocket is, because they're really cool sounding. So compositions generally begin with a note with at least a dotted half note value. So dotted half note value. More often, the beginning note is a whole note or brev. Okay. The final note is at least a whole note value, and more often a brev, so that weird double whole note. And there was considerable rhythmic variety in the late Renaissance polyphony. Two simultaneous voices never have the same rhythm, okay? This is important. So you're never going to have two voices singing the same thing. It's always going to be something different. And rhythmic figures were not repeated in successive measures. So it's not like you're going to have this, for example, all right? So here you've got the same rhythm. So you've got dotted half note, quarter, half note, quarter, quarter. This would never happen again. It would get totally different, okay? And you're never going to see this, all right? You're never going to see the two voices with the same rhythm. Doesn't happen in the late Renaissance. Let's see. So to keep rhythmic flow from being interrupted at interior cadence points, one voice usually rests and then begins the next phase immediately. Right? The staggering of rests is referred to as a hocket. All right? So in this case, you can see here it is, ba, ba, ba. And it basically sounds like a passing off. So it's ba, 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 ba. And it's something that remains popular today. I'll try and post a good video of examples of hockets so you can hear what they sound like. So original manuscripts of the period did not contain bar lines. However, for the sake of 20th century musicians, most modern editions include bar lines. This is true. We include bar lines now because if you've seen any real Renaissance, late Renaissance music, it's really hard to read. And rhythms in individual voices sometimes suggest meters other than meter signature. Most modern editions place the bar lines according to prevailing meter, regardless of the meter suggested in individual voices, to avoid notational complexity. So, you can see this example. So in this one, you can see it's written like this: ba, dee, da, 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 right? So it's a group of 4 beats, group of 3 beats, group of 3 beats, group of 3 beats. Super awkward to read. So we rewrite it to make it readable for our modern eyes, because this is really hard to read. That's all that they're saying. Okay, so let's talk about cadences. Most final cadences in two-voice writing are of the clausula vera type, all right, which the two voices approach an octave or unison through stepwise motion, all right? So basically, this one's stepping down, this one's stepping up, and they go from a consonant to an octave. So some consonant, usually a 6, and then it just expands out to the octave. You always want to hit the octave at the end. In three-voice writing, the third voice adds a falling fifth motion to the clausula. All right? So in this case, you've got our stepwise motion down. So it's spreading out, right? And then the bottom voice drops a fifth. All right? Which is indicative of 5-1, right? So this is the beginnings of that. This is the beginnings of our perfect authentic cadence. And you can see here, we've got our nice stepwise half-step leading tone, the octave. Bam! All right. So we do occasionally find plagal cadences in late Renaissance music. And you'll find them at interior cadence points, so like within the music, not the very, very end. In a two-voice plagal cadence, the lower voice moves. So the lower voice, this one, is going to move up a fifth or down a fourth. So think about our circle our harmonic progressions, right? The circle progression. So up a fifth or down a fourth. So the bass line's going to do that, okay? And then generally the top voice is going to be some sort of stepwise motion down. All right? So that would be a plagal cadence. Pauses often occur in individual melodic lines in this period, but there are these momentary breaks in rhythmic activity sometimes have the effect of cadences. All right, so here, you can see there's a little bit of a sort of a cadence type thing. Here, there's like a weak interior cadence, right? All right? So sometimes you'll see a little cadences. So as in all other styles, 18th century, all of our previous counterpoints, no perfect octaves, no perfect fifths, no perfect unisons. Okay? Not all right. Boo, boo, boo. So keep looking for those. You'll never escape them. Someday I'm going to write a piece that's just all perfect fifths, octaves, and unisons. And it's going to be awesome. So parallel major thirds, major sixths, minor sixths are common. Don't do more than 4 or 5 in one succession, though. All right? So don't have just all perfect sixths, all perfect thirds. Avoid that. Let's see. Also, in late Renaissance polyphony, a number of conventions for setting of texts. So setting of syllables in the words to the texts. So just remember, and again, I'm never going to test you on this, and it's probably never going to apply to you unless you decide to transcribe a late Renaissance motet for your choral group, which actually might come in handy if you are a choir person. So syllables are assigned only to half-note values, all right? So ah, le, lu, oo, ya. All right? So half note or larger. A single quarter note may carry a syllable only when preceded by a dotted half note and followed by a half or whole note. All right? So that's the only case where you can actually have. So if this were a dotted half note right here, and then this were a half note, you could have a syllable right here. That's the only case. Now, after a series of quarter notes, A syllable is not changed until after a white note value occurs. White note being a whole note or a half note, okay? So this is your first white note, then you get to add it. So the syllable changes on the second white note. Okay? So just keep that in mind. The rhythms, and this is just general practice, all right? It's not always, there are always rules, there are always times when somebody breaks the rules or doesn't follow them. So you'll always find an occurrence where this rule isn't followed, but this is the general consensus. This is usually what you see. The rhythms follow the accents of the words quite closely. Accented syllables, are often given a agogic stress. Okay, so you've got alleluia. This accented syllable, the lu, is given longer duration. So it gets a whole measure as opposed to just a few beats. All right? And that's called an agogic, A-G-O-G-I-C, agogic accent. Alrighty. This is just a bunch of history. I'm not going to go over it. Feel free to read it. It's actually can be pretty interesting. So this is obviously late Renaissance, is right before the Baroque era, which is where Bach and Handel and Vivaldi and Corelli and Telemann and all of those guys are. All right? So this is the time right before that. And these are four very big names of the late Renaissance. Yeah. So, a little bit of application. This just gives you an idea of what an analysis is going to look like of a late Renaissance work, okay? So you're looking at all of these intervals, circling intervals that are dissonant, and then figuring out what they're doing there, basically. All right? Are they a passing tone? Is it a neighboring tone? Is it a suspension in the case of this? Like, why is it allowed to be there? All right? That's generally it.